This is Karen with Avoid the Maze, Your Journey Through Life. And my guest today, I found on podmatch.com, and I have to give them a lot of credit for the individuals I find, mainly because I wouldn't have found Robert probably on my own. And when I read his bio, it was like, wow, he is really accomplished. And then my next thought was, oh, sure he is. Um, because most of us hear that somebody is making six figures, has multi-million dollar businesses, and we wonder how true can that be? But when I read more about you, Bo, the first thing I said to myself was, this guy's not kidding me. And so I need to find out how you became the person you are today. So welcome to Avoid the Maze and give us a little bit of information and background.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. Yeah, I'd love to tell a real story. A lot of people would like to kind of exaggerate who they are, their accomplishments, what they've done. I'm not that type of person. I'm at the stage of my life where I just don't care. I'm proud of what I've done, and I have no regrets. And it's an honest story. Things didn't always go well. I'm not like a billionaire or anything. I mean, it's just like a good, honest story, and I'm happy to
Sure.
share the truth of my story without embellishment or exaggeration.
Very good. So when I beginning of the year bio, um, you talk about human behavior. And truthfully, if we all want to achieve and become successful in whatever that model is, it stems from inside. It stems from our behavior in taking that step forward. So were you brought up to be that type of person, or did you develop it on your own?
So I'll start from the beginning, where I was raised in a small town, Easton, Connecticut, and my family were all entrepreneurs. So I am the youngest of three children. My older brother is about 10 years older. My sister is about 8 years older than I am. And they were both entrepreneurs. My brother had his own screen printing company. My sister had her own like real estate business. My mom was self-employed doing different sales jobs, and my dad was an inventor. He actually had a workshop in his basement where he would work with plastics and sell his inventions to companies like Cheeseboro Ponds and other companies that dealt with like plastic enclosures,
Sure.
caps, or anything like that. So he was pretty successful. I mean, we were, a middle of the road, middle income, middle class family. Nothing like extravagant or anything. We weren't the richest people in town, but in terms of financial well-being, we did pretty well. So I didn't know anything else. Growing up, when I was 10 years old, I started working for my dad, working some of his machines, and I listened to some of my sister's tapes. My sister and my mom had these tapes back in the old days. And we would listen to content on tapes where you have to stick the pencil in and you gotta
Yep.
you gotta fix it when it gets a little bit crazy. So I'd put it in my tape recorder, tape player, and there were tapes by like Anthony Robbins, Dennis Waitley, Zig Ziglar, some of the greats in motivational speaking. And I just love that stuff. I kind of fell in love with it. Honestly, at age 10, I didn't understand a lot of it, but they were so positive and uplifting, and I liked what they had to say. So I was kind of instantly drawn in to the you could do anything, the self-help, the motivation, what I like to call now kind of like pseudo psychology. It it has like some like a basis of psychological and human behavior, but
Sure.
it's a lot of marketing as well and fluff. But either it was entertaining, and that's what I was kind of in it for at the time. So I did come from a family that was extremely entrepreneurial, and I feel like whether the question remains how much of that is nature versus nurture. There was definitely a lot of nurture going on in terms of that attitude, like doing things yourself, building your own business instead of just like getting a job. But I also wonder, now as a, and I got a PhD in psychology, I wonder how much of that was genetic as well. Like there are many components to genetic components to entrepreneurs, like risk taking. Some of us have like an innate ability to want and to be okay with risks, and we love taking risks. We love the adventure. We love the high that comes from it. Whereas other people just want nothing to do with that. So that is a big that's a big part of like being an entrepreneur. So I wonder if like there were some kind of genes in our family that kind of that I inherited as well, along with the behavior of watching my family. So that's where I come from, and that's where I started.
It's interesting because as I'm listening to your story, it's sort of like clicking in maybe why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing. I
Mm.
never thought about some of the things that I witnessed when I was growing up at home. Um, but I have two older brothers, and the middle brother was very much into art. And at a very young age, and I would say maybe 11, 12 years old, okay, he was drawing pictures and selling them to family members that were using them as posters on their children's bedroom walls.
Mhm.
And he was very much into things like that, but so were my parents in their own way. And I didn't pick up that thought pattern that I could do it till I was in my mid to late 20s. And it was like, wait a second, if my brother can do it and my father can do it and my mother can do it, well, hey, I'm going to try as well. Didn't have a lot
Yeah.
of confidence in myself. It took me a long time to build that. So I do believe that there probably is that inherent gene that's part of it. And then also the observation of what is going on around you. So one of the things that you talk about in your bio is that by the age of 29, now that's not very old in today's society, you sold a company for $20 million. Now that would make almost anybody else have their eyes roll back and say, oh, now he's set for life. He doesn't have to do anything else. So, what was that like for you? Number one, to have a business that was worth that much, and now you sell it. Now, what do you do?
Right. So before I started that business, I think it's important for your listeners to know, and anybody to know actually, that you don't just jump in and start a $20 million business. This came from like at least a dozen failed businesses that I had, like stupid ideas, ideas that I thought were wonderful that didn't pan out, ideas that really were good, they just weren't very marketable. Ideas that were good and marketable for other people, but because of my lack of experience, I didn't do so well. So there was a lot of failures before that. And that's okay. I think it's really important for people to understand that. Like, that's how you progress. You've got
Right.
to try these things. And if it doesn't work out, you don't like say, oh, I'm terrible, I'm the worst person, I'm stupid, and I'm not cut out for this. There is some truth to that. And you have to know the difference whether the problem is with you or the problem is with more external factors like your ideas. And I think like that's always a tough one. I think it comes down to having some good people that you could trust in your life to tell you honest opinions. Of course, everybody, your family loves you. They'll say, oh, you could do anything, you're the best. But that's not very helpful if you're not. Like,
Right.
I would never be a professional basketball player. I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at sports. I don't like sports. I'm not physically cut out for it. There's so many reasons.
Sure.
I could try my entire life, but I would never even get close to the people who are genetically and let's say environmentally somehow gifted to be able to play that sport. And that's okay. I think it's really important for people to kind of find their niche to see if something works for them and something doesn't work for them. But
Exactly.
it did take a lot of business failures. But I think what did it for me was like the reason that I knew that I was cut out for this is because of progress. I was getting better. I was learning things. My stupid ideas that I started earlier, they were getting better. They weren't as stupid. I started to make a little bit of money. So I saw that progress and I said, oh, this is how it works, and I really enjoyed it. And that's another huge component. You have to really enjoy it. And
Exactly.
you have to have that mindset like, look, if I'm doing okay, I'm putting food on the table, I'm paying my bills or whatever, and I really like doing this, that's got to be good enough for me. And it was. Now, fast forward a little bit until age 29, and this happened from like age 10, when I started my first business of selling like
Sure.
wooden key racks to my neighbors, all the way up until age 29. Probably age 25 would be a better marker when I started that company that I eventually sold for $20 million. There was like, tons of learning, like I mentioned, between there.
Sure.
But the business that I started, I was in the right place at the right time. It was an internet business. I started this in 1995 when people didn't even know about the internet. The
Right.
people were just starting to hear about that. Like, oh, what's this thing called the internet? And I started a web hosting company because I tried to get on the I wanted a website for my graphic design business, and I just couldn't get one. I mean, there's like nobody out there offering like a decent service that made sense. So I kind of secluded myself to a room for 6 months, learned everything I can about the internet, about programming, and I started building my own website. And then I said, oh, you know what? I'm doing this for me. I could do it for other people. So I built like a web-based interface where people could create their own websites, and it took off. I was in the right place at the right time with the right situation too.
Right.
When I was 25, I just graduated from college. I didn't have any debt. I was living in Boston, paying for like $800 a month rent. My graphic design business was covering that just fine, so that wasn't an issue. So I had the money. I didn't have much to lose, and I loved doing it. So everything just kind of came together, which was great. And I think that's really important to be in that kind of position. So that's what I did, and that kind of took me to 6 years later when I sold the company for $20 million, and it felt wonderful.
And you mentioned a couple of things. Number one, you were in the right place at the right time. Okay. You weren't afraid to try. That's a big difference. Okay. Many of us come up with an idea, and we hear these inner voices that tell us, you know, why are you going to succeed? Or we hear the outer voices from family and friends looking at us like we're absolutely crazy. Um, in the early 90s, my husband was working for, which was then a small company by the name of Microsoft. And he wasn't working in Washington State. He was here in Ohio working for them. So he wasn't, a top tier. Nobody was really looking to move him up. And when the job came to an end, he said, look, I have all this expertise. People in the corporate world here in Ohio know me. So I'm going to start my own consulting firm. And he came to me and told me that. And I looked at him like, why are you telling me? And he goes, oh, you're going to have to help me. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to write programs for companies like they've been asking me about when I worked for Microsoft. And I said, yeah, but you don't know the first thing about writing. And he goes, I'll figure it out, which he did. And we had that business for about 10 years until the
Great.
point of it was easier for them to get a canned program from somebody else rather than pay him to write the programs and for me to do the training. But we had our heart and soul into it. And that made the difference. That's why it took off. That's also why that we didn't mind working 7 days a week when we had to, or longer hours.
Sure.
But maybe you disagree with me, but do you think a lot of people have this great idea that Bo created this business, he sold it by an early age, and I can do that too, but not really know how to even go about it. You had already had almost 15 years of experience from a young kid, plus your family. So What do you say to that average person who wants to match your expertise?
Uh, I would say people are very used to that idea that, hey, I did this so you could do it too. And it is sort of a myth. And it's an annoying one too, because if you look into success books and you listen to successful people speak, they usually say like that's their basic shtick.
Yeah.
It's I did this and you could do it too. No, it doesn't work that way. Just like the professional basketball player analogy.
Right.
You can't, Michael Jordan can't come and say, look at I achieved this kind of fame playing basketball and you could do it too. Anybody? No, that's
No.
not the way it works. We all start out in life with different genetics, and we all are raised with a different environment. Everybody has a different set of skills. We have different demeanors, different personalities that all contribute to something that we could do. The important is finding that something, uh, considering all of those things, like what you're really good at naturally, what you really enjoy doing, what you have experience doing. And maybe for a good portion of the people, that is starting a business and having that business succeed. But maybe for other people, it's writing a book, becoming an artist, painting, being a photographer, doing something in sports, athletics. I mean, the list goes on. But when people kind of focus on just the financial aspect and, oh, I want to have a lot of money and this is the way to do it, like to start a business, this is the best way to do it, you're kind of missing the point in a way that you're trying to take a shortcut, you're trying to take a leap from where you are to this other position, and it doesn't work for everybody. And I don't want to be a naysayer because it's just, I mean, that's just kind of the way it is.
Absolutely.
Right. And as opposed to like, but I also don't want to be the person to ever tell anybody this isn't for you. You can't do it. That's not my position, or that's nobody's position to say. That's nobody's advice to give for the person to make that decision on their own if it is right for them. And again, we come back to this question, this extremely important question: when do I give up versus when do I keep going? And even then, the way I worded that, the wording is a little bit slated there. When you say like give up, there's a connotation for that, like, oh, that's a bad thing. And keep going, persist, that's a good thing. Well, it doesn't have to be. These are just words. Essentially, it means keep on doing the same thing that you're doing, keep on going in the same direction versus changing directions. And I like to call that being flexible.
Right.
Sometimes I think for the most cases, flexibility is extremely important. So it's having the wisdom and knowing the difference, knowing when to keep on persisting versus when to enact that flexibility and change your goal, do something a little bit different. So I mentioned before that I was in the right place at the right time. Uh, if things just changed a little bit, like if some conditions changed a little bit, whatever. And I always tell this story. Like the reason I heard about the internet, I was at my sister's party, a party that she was having, and one of her friends came up to me and said, "Hey, Bo, did you hear about this thing called the internet?" And we had about like a 10-minute discussion, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that's what started me down that journey. If that single conversation didn't happen, if I like missed him, if he didn't show up or whatever, then things might have been completely different. So I was in the right place at the right time. Call it luck if you want, call it fortune, call it opportunity, determinism, whatever way philosophy you want to put into it, it doesn't matter. The point is that I am not that type of person who would say that, look, if I could do it, anybody could do it. I recognize the place that I was in. I recognize the genetics and the environment growing up and all those factors. And I understand that not everybody has that. So that's extremely important. And before I forget this part, I do want to mention too that this is kind of where the fairy tale ends in a sense. Um, well, maybe not. You could easily look at my whole life as a fairy tale in a sense. And as a positive person and an optimist, I'm good at that and I could do that. But I could easily sell it to you the other way too. And I could say and tell you the truth, what happened when I sold the company for 20 million a publicly traded company bought us. We got $2 million cash and $18 million in their stock that I couldn't cash in essentially, or 1 year or something like
Sure.
that. And over that time, the company went bankrupt. So, but due to some financial tricks and great advice from my bankers, I was able to get 11 million out of the deal. So I could say I lost $9 million, which is more than most people could even imagine losing.
Right, exactly.
But still, it was the company that was purchased for such like an outrageous number. It was in the .com, like just at the end of the .com, before there was that big bust in 2001. So the company that bought us paid like a tremendous amount of money. That was like ridiculous. Our company was never worth that much in real terms, but somebody was willing to give me a number for that. And a part of me knew that that wasn't a real number, that $20 million, because I was only getting 2 million in cash. So I'm kind of selling it in an inflated company with fake
Sure.
numbers. They're giving me a value with fake numbers. It's all part of the game. At the end of the day, I got $11 million, which was great. $3 million went to taxes, like immediately. That's the government's part. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It was a realistic amount. Um, and then we gave a bunch of money to family and to the employees that helped make the company what it was. So at the end of the day, we had I don't know, like 7 million like left over, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, and it's a lot of money to live an extremely good lifestyle for a long time. But I knew that it wasn't going to last me forever, and because we were young, we spent so much of that money unwisely. Wasted so much of that money, bought stupid things. We invested in real estate. I wasn't a real estate investor, lost a lot of money there. So there was that problem of being so young and having so much money. Like I had no mentor who had a lot of money to be able
Sure.
to advise me. Of course, everybody wanted to be my financial
Of
advisor, and
course.
yeah, but that was something completely different. But we over the next 25 years or so, we we lived like we had a wonderful house in a wonderful town, um, two great kids. We raised them. I was able to work from home. And like immediately after I sold that company, I started my own like holding company where I could just start all these different businesses and just work on the internet and try a bunch of different things. And that's what I did. I enjoyed doing it, and I was able to see my kids grow up. My kids are both like in their mid 20s now, and that's one of the things that I'll never ever regret is having that kind of financial security to be able to work from home that whole time and spend so much time with my kids
That's
and
wonderful.
like not
Yeah.
missing any of like growing up. Our neighbor across the street, this guy did very well financially, but he got up at 6 a.m. His kids were sleeping. He went to work in the city. He'd get back by like 7 or 8 o'clock. They'd have dinner. He'd kiss his kids goodnight. That was it.
Yeah.
His whole life existed like his kid's life are these little flashpoints, an hour, 2 hours per day, maybe on the weekends if he wasn't working. And I did not want that. So that was the best thing that I could think of, like this whole journey. And then being able to travel, that's been wonderful too. I'm going to Europe and a lot of different places we wanted to go and going with the kids. That's been fantastic. But as you can imagine, that lifestyle is expensive. So like I needed to
Keep
keep
working.
working
Yep.
and keep running businesses and starting businesses, and that's what kept me going. And jump probably let me go 10 years back, 15 years back. I was in a place of financial security and in a good place where I wanted to focus on my academic career. I always wanted to become a psychologist. I always wanted to learn more about psychology,
Sure.
critical thinking, reason. So that's what I did. I went back to school. I got my master's degree in general psychology, then a PhD in social psychology. And that again, being in that financial situation afforded me the luxury of being able to do that as like a grown adult with kids, and then also technology, being able to do a lot of that online. So that was really helpful and satisfying too, intellectually satisfying. So I've been doing that ever since, and like here I am now. I'm not driving limousines or anything. I'm not, I've got a 8-year-old BMW that I still drive. We live in a normal house that you'd find in the neighborhood. We're financially secure, but we're not like multi-billionaires or anything like that. Um, money gets spent quickly, but we realize that, and the journey in life is about doing something you love and being able to maintain the lifestyle that you enjoy. And with the businesses that I run now and the success that we have, it's nothing like the $20 million level business, but it's something great where I could work from home. I could spend time with my family. I have a wonderful home and great family, and I just enjoy what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So, what I'm hearing from you, and I'm hoping the listeners hear this, we all have a picture of what we would like our lifestyle to be like. And some of us can reach that pinnacle if it's huge. But along the way, if you are doing something that you believe in, that you like to do, that gives you purpose each and every day, you may not have, the bigger house that you thought you wanted, or the extra car, or the extra vacation. But if you can be happy in doing what you're doing, that is success. And that's what it sounds a lot of what happened with you is that you knew that, yes, I got this bundle of money, but if I just rely on this, it may not take me to the end of my life. And so I've got to keep working. And you like working, you like doing the things that you like to do. I know when I started podcasting, and my son reminds me every time I say it's 10 years, he said, Mom, it's longer than that. But to me, it's still 10 years. But when I started podcasting, I started doing it for a very personal reason. And that personal reason was I knew that I had something to share, and there were people like you out there who had something to share. And I wanted to get that out for whoever wanted to listen. And a couple of weeks ago, I was on a seminar online, and everybody went around the room and how long have you been doing this and how much are you making and whatever. And they came to me and I said, it's been 10 years plus. And they said, how much are you making? And I said, number one, that's between me and my banker. But I said, believe it or not, I'm not in it for the money. Yes, I make some money, and that is good because it helps me continue to do this. But that wasn't my purpose for doing this. And I cannot tell you, I think there were about 100 people on the seminar, that probably 99 of them started sending me texts, you're a fake, you don't really mean that. And the answer is no, I really do mean it. Because if I was doing it for the money, I'd probably be doing it differently. But I'm not doing it differently. What I'm doing is that when my schedule gets too far in advance, and you probably noticed this when I was trying to book you. Right now, I am booked through March of 2025. Okay. I've stopped booking, but I've got the great people that I need on my podcast to share their messages. And
Yeah,
so, to all of you out there listening, if you have a purpose in life that you want to follow, do it. Don't wait. Don't be like, you know, Bo's neighbor who his kids have grown up without really getting to know dad.
right. So
My dad used to work long hours, but my dad did take a lot of time to spend with us as kids. And
that's
I'll
awesome.
tell you, those are the best memories for me today.
That's great. I do want to make a point of clarification because you hear this a lot from, I mean, this seems like typical advice you'd get from a fortune cookie or something like, follow your passion, do what you love. And what I'm saying takes that in a little bit different direction, goes beyond that a little bit. I'm saying that I'm adding an extra piece to that. And I'm
Sure.
saying like if like financial more than security, because let's face it, financial security, it's a matter of balancing your expenses with your income and just finding that balance. So you don't have to be rich at all.
Right.
You could work at McDonald's and have financial security as long as your lifestyle is appropriate for that kind of business. What I'm talking about is people who want to be rich. If you want a lot of money, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with pursuing that. So my advice is find something that you love doing, or at least you enjoy doing. You enjoy quite a bit. That can also help you get rich. So the way that this advice changes a little bit is because when people, you just follow your passion. Okay, you're going to be an artist. You're almost certainly not going to get rich, and at
Right.
least until while you're still alive as an artist, right? or or like a musician, you have like a very small chance, and or like a teacher, people love teaching. Great. You're never going to get rich as a
Right.
teacher, that's for sure. Um, and and then I mean, the extra piece in here is pick something that you like that can also help you get rich.
Sure.
And whatever that may be, one of the easiest things is like, yeah, starting your own business. What do you like doing? I don't know. Maybe you do like teaching. Okay, start a business about like teaching people how to teach or something. I don't know. But the point is, like, find something that you love doing and that can get you rich. Now, if you fail at the goal of getting rich at least you're going to still keep doing what you love doing.
Right.
So that's a little bit different because I'm not just saying just follow your heart, follow your passions, because 9 out of 10 times it's not going to lead you to any kind of wealth
Right.
whatsoever. I'm
Ex-
saying follow your heart, follow your passions, as long as like if you could find something that meets that criteria and has a pretty good chance of making money if you do it right, that's what you want to do. That's the
Exactly.
goal you want to go for.
Well, and I have to preface one of my reasons for getting rich would be great, but it's not my essential, is that I am retired and this is what I do because I love to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and I send my husband to work every day. So
There you go. There you go.
big
And
difference
and
there.
and that's like a perfectly fine attitude to have as well. I mean, some people say, look, I don't care about getting rich.
Yeah.
I just want to do what I love to do. And that's fine. As long as you realize that you're not going to get rich or you're
Right.
probably not going to get rich. And if you're okay with that, it's just not a goal that you have. So why
Exactly.
don't fret about it? There's nothing wrong with that.
So how can my listeners follow you, get to know more about you, and uh, maybe get more advice?
Sure. Well, I've written a bunch of books. One of the things that I have done with my semi-retirement after age 29 is write books. I love to write about topics of reasoning, critical thinking, success, psychology, science. And you could find all of my books at bobennett.com.
Okay. And we'll make sure that is in the show notes so people can go out to your site, learn more about you, read your books, buy your books, first of all, then read them. I think that would be a great way of doing it. Uh, we got to make sure that, Bo can take care of his future grandchildren. So
There you go.
in the meantime, thank you for joining us today and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye bye now.